it is just about showing them the way, showing them the different options, showing them the different possibilities which people would not have otherwise seen or imagined that this is a possibility, right? Just showing them the way and letting them take their own decisions. There are YouTubers who have successfully released videos, say twice a week, every Tuesdays and Thursdays. They would release their videos, and I really respect them if they're able to do that. But that's not the game that I'm playing. At least you remain a generalist for as long as you can. And you don't have to try and be a specialist. You'll automatically become one. How did you build your personal brand? And trust me, I was stuck. I was like, really? Personal brand? Did I build one? That was the day when I learned that there's a phrase like that. All these are businesses. No one is doing anything for charity. It's not an NGO. If I work for a company, you work for a company. These companies exist because they're working on something to make profit, to make money. The layoffs are happening because the company cannot afford you at this point of time. But then keep in mind that you are that valuable asset that someone couldn't afford.
The Design Convo podcast.
For the audience, if you are watching this or hearing this, please go back to session 1 and listen to the mind-blowing facts. And we talked about financial freedom, we talked about hobbies, we talked about engineering backgrounds, we talked about housing, we talked about Zeta, Swiggy, and we were just getting into personal development. We just discussed about your YouTube journey, what made you start a channel, and how you ended up being a content creator, right? And I could not help notice, but that you're now a brand ambassador for the tool LOTTIEFILES. I've always known you as an interaction specialist, right? What's the story behind it?
Oh, well, first of all, I'm not a brand ambassador. I'm a Lottie evangelist.
Okay,
So,
what's the difference? Please break it down for me.
well, brand ambassador, reminds me of big brands, cricketers endorsing brands and all. So I'm not that. So evangelist is a person maybe, who does similar things, but then at a much lower level. So they evangelize the product, right? Many people know about animations and they might have heard about Lottie, but then they do not know how they can use it to their benefit or what exactly it is. They feel that it's another complicated thing, so let's not get our hands dirty on it. So, my job, or rather my expectation as an evangelist, to clarify those doubts, right? There's nothing much, I keep talking about Lottie once in a while, not because, they made me an evangelist, because I genuinely love what Lottie is, because it solves a lot of problems. And once in a while, I conduct some sessions with Lottifieds, maybe a fireside talk or just a chat or some sort of a thing, some sort of a engagement program. That's about it. That's what makes me an evangelist at Lottifieds.
You have been listed as a mentor in platforms like ADPLIST and design.org. How has your mentorship experience been? What was your takeaway from all these things?
Oh, yeah. So actually, I started, generally, I used to mentor people before. But then the real hardcore mentoring started during COVID. Because that was the time when a lot of people were losing jobs because the entire world was very unstable, and many designers also lost jobs, right? And not just designers, a lot of other people were losing. So that's when a friend, Felix Lee, he's the founder of ADPLIST, by the way. So I've known him for quite some time. So he came up with this concept of ADPLIST. And the idea was same. A lot of people were losing their jobs and they were not in the right mental state. And this is the right time for them to get mentored, because a mentor can add a lot of value to their lives, or if not, just listen to them and make them feel good, right? So that's how ADPLIST came into being, and I was one of the first mentors out there. Of course, ADPLIST was no way close to what it is today, because today there are a lot of things that you can do within the app itself. And of course, no, I'm not accessible via ADP today. You can see my profile, but then you can't book a slot with me. There's a story, I'll tell you maybe. So back then, it was just about, you create your profile and you put a Calendly link out there. So people click on that and they just go out of ADP and then book a slot using Calendly, and then, you can talk. So I started doing that because, I really felt for the people, who needed that. And I thought that, it's my duty to do it. So I started doing it. And, when I started doing, it escalated pretty fast. And I was talking to at least 2 people every day. Okay. So that was actually the thing. So every evening, I would have someone talking to me. I would have some calls scheduled with me. And then there was a point it reached that there was a queue of 2 months for people who were trying to talk to me, right? So that's a limit that Calendly gives, that people can come and schedule a slot with you up to 2 months in advance. So they wouldn't find any of these slots before 2 months because they were already blocked. That the next best thing that they could find was something 2 months away, right? So that's how it started. So that's how active I got into mentoring people. I did that for almost a year, okay, and then I realized that it was affecting my well-being, my family life, everything, because every day I was spending an hour or so talking to people. It was a good deed, but then it was being too much, right? You enjoy up to a certain extent, and after that it just gets on you. So that's when I thought that I'll have to do something to control the traffic. And before that, actually, before controlling traffic, I thought that there were people who needed to listen to me or speak to me urgently. They were not getting to do that because they could at best find a slot which was 2 months away. That's when I introduced a paid slot. I called it the fast lane. It was just, the money was just to create a friction. So I charged $7. That if you pay $7, you probably get to have a slot tomorrow or day after tomorrow or something like that. I created a special slot for them. So like that, I could cater to some people, who say has a interview the following week and they urgently needed to discuss something and stuff like that. That happened, but then I saw still it was not manageable. There were lots of people who were coming. That's when I thought, okay, COVID has got it better and the industry has also gotten better. Let me pause. So I paused that. And also another problem that I was facing was Calendly. People in India were finding very difficult to book a slot because the Indian payment methods didn't work out there. You need to have a PayPal or some foreign credit card out there. That's when this thing called Superpage came up. So now I presently use Superpage. Of course, I stopped the free mentorship because there are other things that I'm doing in the evenings. There are people who recurringly get on calls with me, and I do not have all that many slots. So now it's only paid slots that I have on Superpage. And again, the payment is just to create some friction so that only selected people who absolutely need it can come. So I played around with the amount till I arrived at the number. I know that okay, this is the traffic I'm comfortable with. So that's where I'm sitting right now. So that's how it started. But then one whole year, I remember when I was talking to almost two people every day, every weekday, not on the weekends. It was a great thing, listening to people's stories and then seeing a pattern in the kind of questions and the kind of doubts which people had, and generally, how people feel. There was a pattern, be it an Indian or be it for someone from outside India, foreigner. The problems were more or less similar. The questions were more or less similar. That self doubt. Am I good enough, or is my portfolio good enough? I'm doing this. How can I reach there? It was very common. It was a set of 15-20 questions which people would keep asking. And that also helped me, to create content for my YouTube channel because I knew what people want to hear, and I would just make videos on that. So yeah, that's a long story of how my mentorship journey kind of began.
That's brilliant, man. Hey, I think it's very similar to if you could remember, I asked a question about being a manager, right? Not everyone is made a manager, right? It's definitely the characteristics and traits you have to develop. And what do you think makes a great mentor?
Okay, tough question. Pretty similar to manager. I think the answer that I've given for manager, it's pretty similar. Just that you do not you're not involved in the professional growth of that person, right? I think I've also answered on day one about my mentorship journey in my college. That barefoot counseling, the counseling journey essentially. I think it's very similar to that. It is just about showing them the way, showing them the different options, showing them the different possibilities which people would not have otherwise seen or imagined that this is a possibility, right? Just showing them the way and letting them take their own decision. At times, it is just about letting them know from a trusted source that this is fine, right? A lot of people might say that, hey, Web3 is great, but then you can't believe everyone, right? But then when it comes from a trusted source, then okay, if this person is saying it, then there definitely has to be something good in it, something right in it. So I try to be that trusted source. I think a mentor should be that trusted source. That when someone tells you something about their career, people can blindly have faith in that person, right? Of course, never take a decision on behalf of the person you are helping out, but show them the direction and let them take their decision because it's their life.
Okay, it's about helping them find the way. Yeah.
Yep.
Um,
Wayfinding, exactly.
Sapta, do you think teaching or content creation is possibly the best passive income stream for a creative individual, especially a designer?
I don't know if it's best. It's definitely one of the things. Again, I would say, content creation is not for everyone. Or at least the way I look at content creation. I strongly believe in quality of the things that I am creating. When I say quality, quality in terms of everything, in terms of the content, in terms of the stuff that I'm saying, the thing that I'm teaching, the value that I'm adding, all the way to the quality of my maybe light, my video, my sound, everything. So all those things put together is quality for me. And for me at least, if I'm making a content, that needs to be absolutely great in terms of all these things, right? And that's the reason you would see me, I'm not as frequent as I would want to be. Because there are YouTubers who have successfully released videos, say twice a week, every Tuesdays and Thursdays they would release their videos, and I really respect them if they're able to do that. But that's not the game that I'm playing, at least. I don't mind growing my followership at a slower pace. But when someone comes to my channel and watches whatever 20, 30 videos I have, even if it's not 200 or 300, they should get absolute value out of them. After watching my videos, they should feel that why are there only 30 videos? Why not 10 more? Right? I want to really unlearn this from you. And that has happened. People message and tell me that's the kind of content I want to make, right? Honestly, I don't see the need to make that as my primary source of income as of today. But people have different aspirations. For me, it is just about value creation. And I believe if I keep creating value like this by putting high quality content out there, one day it's going to start making money for me. One day, I mean, I still make money out of it, but then one day it's going to make me a lot more money than what I'm making today, right? Uh, that's more of a byproduct. That's more of a byproduct for me. So I see it that way. But if someone wants to start creating content purely for the sake of making money, then I think it's a very different game. It's a very different game. You need to have a lot of discipline. You need to work really hard because the frequency matters a lot. People you will actually have to post at least twice a week or once a week, if not daily, and create value into the minds of the user so that you make so many videos that people watch and then they keep coming. So that's a very different game, right? Uh, so yeah, for both these two strategies, the kind of skills that you need could be very different. And in general, it's not a very easy job. It sounds fancy, but then trust me, it's not for everyone. Now, I've dodged your question. Now, coming back to exactly what you asked me. Uh, well, it could be one of the ways of passive income, but in my mind, I think a better way to make passive income is to sell stuff, right? Selling could be a simple UI kit, could be a simple icon pack, or an illustration, and it can go all the way up to an NFT, right? You make once and you keep earning. I think those are more sure shot ways of getting passive income than content creation, because the possibility of failing in content creation is much higher.
Okay. Especially with the kind of competency we have, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And we know for a fact that it's better to start out as a generalist, and when you find confidence in a domain, we build our specialty around it, right? And some people, someone like me, say for example, want to stay a generalist all through our career. Does it affect our growth significantly?
Well, I I don't think so. Short answer, because if you have watched my videos, or if folks in the audience who are listening to this have watched my videos, I always keep saying that uh, you remain a generalist for as long as you can, and you don't have to try and be a specialist. You'll automatically become one, and for that, you don't have to put the effort. The day you think that, okay, what, now I should build specialization, then maybe you're running a little too fast, right? uh, Start doing everything, and over time, in my opinion at least, and I could be totally wrong, specialization builds, right? And if you're saying that you want to remain a generalist over time, maybe in your mind you want to, but you never know, you might have already built a specialization that you are not aware of, right? So after some time, it is just about understanding, okay, what am I really great at? And also, in everyone's books, uh, the way we classify things can be very different, right? For example, you are great at illustration, right? You're good at illustration, but in your books, you are maybe just a 6 out of 10. right? And that's why you feel like, hey, I definitely am not a specialist because I'm just a 6 out of 10. Now, what 6 out of 10 is in your mind? It's not a standard scale across the world, right? Now, imagine some other person whose illustration is perhaps worse than yours, but in their mind, it's an 8 out of 10. They will go and shout out and say that, okay, I'm a specialist in illustration. Does that make that person better than you? Not necessarily. Maybe you are still a better person, right? But you don't know that you are that good, right? So I think that's a good strategy, the way you said that, you want to remain a generalist all your life, which means that, you want to try out different things and let one or two particular things grow automatically. It will grow, right? Because if you love something, it's definitely going to spike. And you never know. Maybe you're already a specialist in something. And someone else, someone who's outside, will know that, hey, Shakthi is a specialist in this. But then Shakthi doesn't know it. It's true for everyone. It's true for me, true for everyone as well, right? So, yeah, short answer. I don't think you will lose anything, even if you feel that you want to remain a journalist for all your life. In fact, people managers, right? Most of the people managers are largely generalists because when they manage a team, they need to have an idea about everything. And of course, they are also specialists in a few things, which are, of course, their areas where they really love what they're really good at. But I think they are all largely generalists. So, yeah, I don't think you lose anything in the career progression.
That's a really good answer, man. Thanks for sharing it. Let's talk about personal brand. And this is the part which I'm the most excited about, right? Sapta is
Okay.
a brand.
Okay. Oh, is it?
Sapta is a brand. How did that happen?
Thanks for telling me. Uh, honestly, I didn't. I don't know. Uh, well, okay, okay. Thanks for saying that Sapta is a brand. I didn't know that, but uh, well, see, personal branding. I think it's a fairly new phenomenon, or the phrase at least. Uh, but how it happened, I believe you're referring to the number of people who know me, right? With internet, I think it's not that tough a thing because you can put out your work, show your work, and then anyone in this world can potentially come and have a look. And once more and more people come and have a look at your work and they like you, uh, you become a brand, right? So, and it was never called a brand before. It was just about popular, right? Maybe our actors, look at our Bollywood actors, like old times, Amitabh Bachchan, Rajesh Khanna, and all. Do you ever call them brand? Like Rajesh Khanna is a brand? Not really. They're just famous people. They're just popular people. Because back then we never used the word personal branding, right? And why did they become famous? Because lots and lots of people knew them. Now, today in the world of internet, it's very easy for people to know you because yep, put your work out and people know you, right? So when I started in 2015 as a designer, I started working for housing, and there were some really popular designers out there, right? They would put a design out there or some interaction out there in the internet, and then people from all over the world would shower with praises, likes, comments, and whatnot, following and all, right? I craved that attention. So I didn't have that attention, right? Because I was just a kid who started designing. Maybe half the team didn't even know that I existed. And I'm not kidding. Back then, Housing's team was large. We were around 40 people. I was one of the 40 designers out there. I'm pretty sure half the people didn't even know that I existed. And maybe three-fourths of them didn't even know what my name was. So that's how it was, right? And once you're in that situation, you crave for some sort of attention. And especially, I'm an extrovert person. I crave for attention once in a while. And if you don't get that, it starts affecting you mentally. You become quiet, which is very different from what your actual nature is, at least for me. Uh, in housing, my manager actually told me one day that I thought you were an introvert, but then you are not. She told me a few months later because in the first few months, she felt I was an introvert because I wasn't getting that attention because I wasn't confident that I could even stand a chance amongst all these people, right? So again, it all started with that attention seeking thing. That's when I started putting work out. Okay, I got a dribble invite from a friend and I started putting work out there. I started learning motion design because I saw people putting animations and they're getting a lot of praises. I wanted that too. I started learning motion design. I started creating, thinking different sort of interactions that could happen. And I started putting them out. And guess what? I started getting that attention too. So the largest number of designers that I ever connected to happened via Dribble. Dribble was a great Dribble is still a great platform. But back then, I think that was the thing, when there was no Web3, no NFT, nothing more cooler than Dribble. Okay,
It
so
was
if you're
exclusive,
on
yeah.
Dribble, and it was exclusive, and then if you are performing well on Dribble, you are a celebrity already, no matter who you are, right? So I started getting that celebrity feel in Dribble after putting 2-3 shots which went become popular, which went viral and all, right? So that's how it started. And then years passed. Yeah, I started knowing more people. I moved from Mumbai to Bangalore, started attending meetups and all. I started knowing more designers. I started being more active on social media, with my Dribble shots, with Medium articles and stuff like that. And over time, what I saw was people started knowing me. And then one fine day, someone asked me the same question that you were asking me. How did you build your personal brand? And trust me, I was stuck. I was like, really? Personal brand? Did I build one? That was the day when I learned that there's a phrase like that. Okay. And yeah, when I look back, I feel it is just about letting your presence know, making your presence known. How you do it? By showing your work, or by spreading gyan, or by creating content, or by doing something extraordinary out there. The choice is yours. I think the brand automatically gets built. I never attempted, I never put effort to build it. So I don't know if I answered your question, but that's what happened to me.
You did. Being in the game and being consistent is the key. Yeah. And how should a creative individual position himself or herself in the industry?
Well, position, right? uh, I think you need to know what you like. Okay, again, I'm quoting Rancho from Three Idiots once again. If you start doing the things that you love, if you make it your profession, uh, your work won't feel like work. It'll feel like you're just playing a game, and you're not doing it because you're pressurized to earn money or pressurized to do something. You're doing it simply because you love, and everything else is kind of a byproduct. Your personal brand, your fame, your money, everything becomes a byproduct, because if you love something, when you do it, you do it really well, much better than someone who doesn't necessarily love it, right? Provided you put the same amount of attention, same amount of effort and all, right? So for positioning, I would say, try and understand what you love. And it's not easy. When I say it in a one sentence, it might seem like easy, but it's not. For I have seen a lot of people, who stick to a perceived notion, right? Maybe there is a notion that depends on which platforms you browse, what kind of people you talk and interact with. There is a notion that the core UX work or problem solving thinking is a superior work than visual work, right? It's just a notion. In real life, I think both of them are equally important, because if there is no balance between the two, you haven't done a great job as a designer. My opinion again. I have seen a lot of people who tried to change their inner calling because they wanted to impress somebody else, right? I knew a lot of great visual designers, right, who could have done great stuff in their lives, but then they chose to not make that as their area of focus because certain perceptions existed in the world, and they tried totally to switch into something else. I'm not saying that they're not doing well; they're still doing well, but I feel if they have continued doing what they really loved, what they were really good at, they could have been at very different place today, right? So it's about understanding as well, right? Don't just stick to what the world says it is. Understand what you're good at, because there could be one person who does exceptionally good and creates that brand and all into maybe by being a researcher. Sure, you don't necessarily have to be that person. You can be that person by being exceptionally good at visuals, right? Now, both of them have reached their places, but then by doing very different things. So try and understand what you love. For that, you may have to try out different things and see what naturally comes to you. And once things start coming to you naturally, you know there's a possibility that you can make it really good. You can make it really good. I'll give you an example. The other day, we went for a team outing from Swiggy. There I played squash for the first time. I think last time I was telling you, right, that I started playing squash. It just happened 2 weeks back. I started playing squash first time in that resort where we had gone. I got it very natural. I was surprised at the way I was playing the first time I held the racket. I don't know how. Maybe it has got to do because I'm a trained badminton player as well, because I learned it during school. Maybe that could be the reason. Maybe I saw some similarities because both of them are intensive racket games. That could be the reason, or is it something else? But I got it very, very naturally. And now I'm playing it almost every day. And I believe I'm getting better every day, right? So try and understand, try and find if you get something naturally like that. It could be things in design, it could be illustration, motion, or anything. And if you pursue that, I think that's the way you should position yourself. Just position yourself as that, as a generalist, but then someone who has a knack towards it. You don't necessarily have to say it. The work that you put out there will automatically speak. Okay, this person is a product designer, but this person has a very different style of visual storytelling. It'll automatically come out from the work you put. So I think, yeah, that can be a way to go about.
That's a brilliant answer, man. Thanks for sharing it. I have an interesting question, a follow up question. We talked about personal branding, right? Does having a personal brand influence landing a job or negotiating better salaries?
Yes, it does. I would like to believe so. It does. But see, but the thing is, well, there can be many sides to it. But short answer, it definitely does. Because you are known, okay, and if you are known and you have that personal brand, it's highly possible that you don't have to apply to companies. Maybe companies reach out to you. Of course, that happens these days. Simply, if you have a LinkedIn profile, you'll have a lot of recruiters calling out, right? But then, if you have a strong place out there in the internet, right, which is nothing but your personal branding, you become a more confident person, right? You have that confidence that, hey, you know what, they reached out to me, but that's not a reason that gives you an opportunity to be arrogant. Never be an arrogant person in such cases, but you tend to feel more confident, so that you're not scared when something is asked to you. You can be the best version of yourself, because nothing is you're not scared of anything, right? So I think that definitely gives you an advantage. And the second thing is more opportunities, because you'll have larger number of people reaching out to you, right? For example, if let's talk about maybe research, right? UX research. There are so many UX researchers in this world, but if I were to think about UX research, I'll only think about maybe 5-10 people who I have seen talking about UX research, either on Twitter, LinkedIn, or some other place, right? Does it mean they are the best UX researchers? Does it mean they are the only UX researchers? Not really. But it creates a top of mind when I keep seeing them talking about research. Essentially, when I keep looking at their personal brand, right? So in the future, if I have to hire a researcher, they would be my first point of contacts, right? Maybe I'll first go and speak to them, and then maybe they refer me to somebody else and all, but not someone who I've never heard about, right? They might be equally good or even better. So that way, I think even the number of opportunities that you get also significantly increases if you have a strong social presence or personal brand, as you call it.
Most of us land in a pretty good job, and most of the times we like it. And sometimes the team and the job outgrow the person as a designer, and most of the times the person as a designer outgrows the team and the job. When do you think is the right time to quit a job?
Okay. Right time to quit a job. Okay. I see it as two different things that you've said. See, in my mind, we all live in a frame of reference, which is not absolute, which is always in reference to something else, right? So look at the world, right? We are standing still on the earth, but then the earth is spinning. The earth is also rotating around the sun. So we always measure things based on a point of reference where we are right now. So in my mind, the companies or the place where you are in, the city where you are in, the country where you are in, all those things are moving. Okay, moving from a career progression point of view. I don't mean the geographical movement out here, right? That's what people say, right? This is a very fast city. Mumbai is a fast city because this happens, financial growth or stock market and stuff like that. Similarly, people say the same for tech in Bangalore, right? And then if you see it at a country level, sure, India is progressing, so is US, so is China. Maybe China is progressing even faster than India and stuff like that. You keep hearing them, right? These are nothing but the pace at which things are moving in a career progression way. Think of it like a boat or a travelator. You have those travelators on your airport, right? They are moving at a speed. You are walking on it with your speed, and then both of you are working in the same direction. Your velocities kind of add up, and then your total velocity, you start moving faster. You know what I'm talking, right? So I think the same thing happens. Since you have used the example of company, let me give that. Every company is moving at a particular speed. some companies move faster, some companies not so much. Some company may even move backward, depending on what they are doing, how they are doing, and all. Similarly, every individual also has a pace. Some people move really fast, some people not so much, some people are simply standing and not even walking, right? So the overall growth depends on the sum of these two things, the speed of the individual and the speed of, or the velocity of the individual and the velocity of the company. And that's when it adds up, right? So I think it's not that, the speed of the individual exceeds the company. That could be one way to measure. But the way I see it is, it's not just speed. You should see that, is the company giving you enough challenges that you're capable of solving, that you're capable of taking up? If the answer is yes, sure, stay there and keep working, right? But if you feel that you're capable of doing a lot more than what the company is able to give you, maybe then it's the way time to move. It's not about pace. It's about, I think, the challenges. Because of course, it eventually translates to maybe speed of growth and all, because the bigger problems that you solve, the bigger challenges that you tackle, more likely you can prove yourself like a better designer. So I think that's the way to go about. That's what something at least I do when I look at other opportunities, or when companies approach to me. I feel that, okay, is the other company going to give me better, bigger challenges? Because that will determine how fast I'm going to move. And of course, I also see at what pace the company is moving. That's one thing that I definitely see. The second thing that I see is what is the potential it's going to create for me, and how fast can I walk over it? Because that will determine my overall velocity once I move there. Based on that, I take a decision.
Amazing, man. HC Verma would be proud of it. The answer was brilliant. Thanks for sharing it.
Yeah, mechanics.
Yeah. When you take care of people, when you take care of projects, right? When you do project management and people management, and the responsibility falls on your shoulders, that you need to take care of and mentor, and you know keep pushing people forward, right? And sometimes, as a designer, as a individual, you feel the lows in your days, and you don't feel to the maximum potential every single day, right? How do you handle that? Do you feel so? I feel it once in a while, like probably once in 2 weeks, or once in a month, or something like that, where people
Okay.
reach out to me and I'm like, just leave you alone for a day. And how do you handle such lows?
Yeah, I see. I think it happens to everyone. Of course, it happens to me. It happens to. I'm sure it happens to my manager, his manager, and so on. Right. See, a human mind can only take so much, right, at a time. So when there are many things happening inside your head, uh, there are times when you may just burn out, right? Like we were speaking about multitasking before, right? So we were talking about, don't just think about multitasking at the moment. That I'm also listening to music and I'm also doing my work. That's not the multitasking I'm talking about. I'm talking about doing different things in your life, and that's where we said that spread it across 15 days. Maybe that's when you see what have you achieved. Based on that, you can decide if you are doing it fine or not. But when you are at a job, you don't always have the control on it, right? You can't say that, okay, this thing should come to me maybe 3 days later, because by then I would have finished something else. That's how ideally it should be. Maybe in bigger companies it happens that way, where they have processes and all. But then, especially in startups, you can't expect to be that way, right? So situations do arrive like that. When you feel that you just want to just stay away. And when people ping me to unblock them, I also feel the same at times, that leave me alone for a day maybe. But then I don't have the complete liberty to do that. That's when what I do is, I look at the priority of the thing. Why are they reaching out to me? So if someone reaches out in such a scenario, I don't really say no, but I try and understand what is it regarding. Can it wait? So these are the two questions that I ask. If it is something that I feel is important, or if it's something that it cannot wait, because it's something really important, I make sure that no matter what, I take that, I unblock that person, or I take that decision, or I take that call, whatever it is. But if it is something that can wait, I push it. Because one of my work as a leader is to manage my own time as well. Because if I don't manage my time, I wouldn't perform at a level that my company expects me to, right? My company never said that you should always load yourself up with your work. No, that's not what they've hired me for. They've hired me to do things effectively. And for that, I need to have my mental space. So for that, I'll have to manage my day. When I have 3 meetings in a particular slot, I will have to take the hard call of rejecting 2 of them or requesting them to move it to some other place. Or, if there's an incoming request, I have the liberty to say no to them. But of course, after understanding the graveness of that situation. So yes, I would say the way I handle it is I understand how important it is. I try to understand how important it is, and based on that, I decide if I should take it now or if I should take it later. So there's a very famous graph. It's nothing but a quadrant, right? It's about urgency and complexity, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, it was this. If something is urgent and complex, you do it right now. If something is urgent but not complex, delegate it to somebody else. If something is complex but not urgent, have it in your backlog, maybe do it later. And if something is not urgent and not complex, let it be. Cross the bridge when time comes. So in such situations, I make sure that something that is urgent and complex, and something which is urgent and not complex, I handle those situations. The other two I just leave. Urgent and complex, definitely I would do, because that's the most important one. The other one, it's about delegating. So that's the second in my list of priority. So that's how I do
Okay.
it.
Amazing, man. Can you name a few designers that inspire you every single day to become a better designer?
Oh, I can't do that. That's a very tough question, man.
Okay, can't name just a
uh,
few, right?
yeah, see, I can't, honestly. Or rather, maybe even if I do, most of you may not like the answers, because when such questions are asked, who inspires you, the answers are usually expected to be someone really great. Oh yeah, that person. Oh yeah, that person. But that usually not the case. People who inspire me are usually my friends or the people that I work on a daily basis. Of course, they're great at their game. They're great at what they're doing, but they're not necessarily Steve Jobs famous. They're not necessarily someone else, Johnny Ive famous and all, right? But that's the kind of answers which people expect. But I can surely take names. There's some people that I work with, right, on a daily basis, right, and some of my designer friends. I really look up to Ramakrishna. He's a great friend. He's a family friend. I work with him in Zeta. I look up to Kshitij, another person I work at Zeta, for his exceptional understanding of users and solving complex problems that way. I really really look up to my manager Srinath at Swiggy, because he has that. He loses his temper once in a while, but then he has his skill of, I think, being really calm when he's handling his reportees. I think that's exceptional. He can make you feel better in any situations. I think that's one skill that he has. I'm trying to learn that from him. I really look up to other people in my team: Abhishek Mishra, Prasanna Venkatesh, of course, Rahul Bhosle, who was my colleague at Housing, and Rahul and Rama were in fact the people why I started doing motion design. So you see, all these people are really great at what they are doing, but none of them are celebrities, right? So these kind of questions, when I answer it in a way, people usually don't like. I was once recording a similar podcast and I was asked exactly the same question. That was on motion design. When I answered Rahul and Rama, my friends who inspired me, later that question was cut out because it wasn't a fancy answer. But I can't help. My people around me inspire me. That's it. That's how I am.
Of course, man. That's totally a subjective question, and that's exactly the reason I wanted to hear about it. Thanks for sharing it. And what are your
I
thoughts
hope
on
you'll
Web
not
three?
edit out the question.
I never edit out any segment from my podcast. Never.
Just kidding, man. Yeah.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on Web3, Metaverse, etc.? How do you think a designer would have to adapt to design for Web3?
Well, short answer is I don't know much about them, but I can I have some idea about some of these things, because I also imagine things. So some of these things I might have imagined in the past when these things were not there, right? So I come from I come from an IIT, right? So not posting out there, but then people out there are not necessarily great with engineering. They're actually better at other things, right? So that's why you will see some very extraordinary people coming out of you know uh, coming out of IITs and stuff like that. And one of the reasons that I loved in my college were discussions. You would see 2 or 3 people getting into very, very deep discussions about anything which has got probably nothing to do with tech, nothing to do with engineering, right? So some of these things that we hear today, right, about metaverse, about an alternate universe where this could happen, that could happen, how would the interaction happen? I had been parts of such discussion where we would just simply sit and discuss, right? Simply, over dinner table, dining table, we are discussing this deep discussion, 3 or 4 people getting into it. So, as a part of those things, I've been a part of such discussions. But honestly speaking, I haven't really explored all that much with Web3. But then coming to your question, when you said how can designers contribute to that, I feel it's just about being aware. As I had said on day one also, the fundamentals of designs don't change and they will never change. If you see centuries back, the fundamentals using which, maybe physical designs like, the iconic furnitures or chairs and stuff were designed, or, certain appliances and all were designed. The same principles we are using even today, just that we are using it for a different medium. We are using it for digital world, or we are using it to design GUI, graphic user interface, mobile app interface, or web interfaces and all. But the way we think, the way we analyze, the way we interact with our users, the way we use a test, those things don't really change. So my belief is, whatever it is, the platforms may change. I may not design for a glass screen like this. I may design for an entire space which is in a 3D world, or I may design in a system which is disconnected, which is decentralized fully, and it's not one central authority that is controlling it. But if I'm an experienced designer, I would apply the same skills that I have been applying. But it is just about knowing the domain, right? It's just about understanding and experiencing how that domain is, how that world is. It is very similar to, you live in India today, right? Maybe you live in Chennai, right? Now if you move to, say, the Netherlands, right, you go and start living in Amsterdam. First few days would be a little different for you, right? You would The rules are different out there, maybe where you put your trash out, how you shut down your window, or how do you make a payment or something. Those things would be different, but at the end of the day, it's a same place, the same food that you're eating, it's the same humans that you're interacting with. But it just needs a bit of getting used to, because you're not used to that kind of world. I believe it's that, right? As long as your social skills, your communication skills are fine, you'll be able to manage in any part of the world, right? After that brief period of getting used to. I think it's the same out there. The fundamentals of design remain same, and it's going to remain same. It's never going to change. It's just about that phase of getting used to. So what I recommend is, start getting used to. Web3 is going to be the future. Metaverse might be the future. Start experiencing what that is. What does it mean being in the metaverse, or what does it mean designing for Web3 and all? Maybe read about it, talk to some designers who are already into it, to just pass that bridge of getting comfortable with it, so that you're already prepared for the future.
If you could go back and change one thing about yourself or the way you handle things in the past, what would it be?
I won't change anything, man. I won't change anything. I would be scared to change it. I'm an ardent believer of this phenomenon called butterfly effect. I'm sure you might have heard about it. In fact, I had a TEDx talk, not a TED talk, on butterfly effect, actually, right? There was also a very famous movie, Butterfly Effect, which is around the same topic. Watch that movie if you can. So it's like, one small change in your life in the past could expand in such a way that it would have a very different outcome. Like, to give you an idea, say maybe when I was in sixth standard, one day when I stepped out of school, one person offered me a candy. Now whether I say yes or whether I say no, that could have massive change in my entire life. Maybe I had said no then, that's why I'm sitting and talking to you today. If I had said yes, maybe I would have a very different life, maybe a much better life, or a much worse life, or in some other part of the world, or maybe I would be dead. You never know, right? That's what butterfly effect does. So I'm a believer of that. So if I look at my life today, by God's grace, I have nothing much to complain. I'm happy doing what I'm doing. I'm happy to be with my family, my parents, my wife and all. I'm happy doing my work, right? So I'm actually scared to go and change anything, because I don't know what the outcomes would be. so so yes, I won't change anything.
Do you believe in God? I just heard you say by God's grace. Do you believe in God?
I do. I'm not religious, but I'm not an atheist either. Um, but yeah, I think God is positivity. It's that. Um, It's that positive feeling that good things are going to happen to you, because someone out there is going to do something, right? So while I understand the science behind religion, and I know that maybe there's nobody out there sitting, but it's still a feeling of optimism which just stays with you. So yes, I believe in God, although I'm not religious, all that, not so much religious.
Amazing.
Yes.
That's nice. That's nice. You talk a lot about the business side of design, right? How important do you think are the designers in the real world, especially when we see wars happening around the world? Will we still be relevant and necessary?
In general, it is important to know the in and out of the things that you're working on, right? Whether design or not, because the more you know about it, the more you know the inherent reason why you're doing it. It it's much better. It's you can connect the dots much more easily. So I think business is one of the things. So yes, it's good to know about business. Similarly, business is not the only thing. It's good to know about tech. It's good to know about product. It's good to know about analytics, or anything is under it, right? Uh, I think that understanding is what is expected from a design, right? Well, some people might believe that as you become a senior, you have to become a business person. No, I don't believe in that, right? I'm a designer, and I have grown because I was good as a designer. It doesn't mean that I stopped designing and start doing business. For that, I could have done an MBA and then been a business person right from the beginning. But I chose this path because this is also needed, right? But however, what is important is to understand how business works, right? How how does the company that you work for, how does the product that you're making make money? Because that money is important. That kind of ensures that you keep getting your salary, right? And all these are businesses. No one is doing anything for charity. It's not an NGO. If I work for a company, you work for a company. These companies exist because they're working on something to make profit, to make money. Money making is their aim. Sure, we are solving problems in the process, right? We are solving problems so that we can make money. It's not a charity out there, right? They need to make money. So that's why it's very important for you to understand how this money is being made. Is it even being made? Or if not, how would the company make money in the future, right? So stuff like this you need to know. Have a high level understanding, that's okay. You don't need to know about business laws, rules. You're not expected to sit in a room and strategize business. No, just understand it. And again, from a pure design level thing, if you want to know, uh, if you're asked to make something, right, if you're asked to solve a particular problem, there I think you need to ask, okay, why are we solving this problem? Sure, it is solving the user's certain needs and it's making something easier for them, but is that the only reason? Is there any business reason behind what we are doing? Or maybe once we do this, this will happen, and then that will happen, then maybe the user won't do that, and because of which we are going to save maybe 30 paise every order. It's good that you know that, right? It is just about hear it like a story and keep that in your mind, right? This is the end goal of it, right? And don't think that, okay, 30 paise, am I working for 30 paise? But then when you multiply it by all the number of things that are happening, when you multiply it with a scale factor, all the user base that you have, that 30 paise becomes millions, right? So knowing that big picture, how you're impacting that small thing which is leading to such big impact for the organization, understanding that is important. That's about it. I don't think you're expected to know any more business about it, right? There shouldn't be cases where you are like, uh, I don't know why the hell this is happening. Business wants it. If you ever get that kind of a thought, try and understand why business wants it. Business people are not a bunch of fools out there. They're very intelligent and smart people. If they want it in a certain way, they have a very strong reason why they're asking for it, right? So maybe your work is to find creative solutions or better solutions, how that can also be achieved, and also the user goals can also be achieved. That's where understanding business comes with picture and real sense.
With these tech firms, right? At least the newer tech firms or and the big short tech firms, we hear about massive layoffs every day in the tech world. Of course, the best will thrive. How do you think could an upcoming or an average designer stick down to their jobs?
That's a tough question, especially in the scenario when many companies, at least in India, are going through layoffs, right? It's a very sensitive topic, I would say. Um, but one thing I see, there are reasons for everything. You said about average or not so average or above average, the best of the lot. I want to keep all those things aside for a while, and I just want to speak about layoffs. Why do they happen? The layoffs are happening because the company cannot afford you at this point of time. It's as simple as that, right? If the company had money like the way they are expected to be, they wouldn't have laid you off, right? So when situations like this arise, that they are bound, they're forced to let you go because they can't afford someone as good as you. That's when they lay you off. So yes, it can be demotivating, but then keep in mind that you are that valuable asset that someone couldn't afford, right? So if there is anyone who's listening who had been through a layoff recently, keep that in mind. Like, think of it, right? Uh, in olden days, when there was any kind of emergency, people would sell their lands, their home, or maybe in modern days they would sell their properties, cars, and gold and stuff like that, right? Why would they sell them? Do they not like them? Are those not good? They are good, of course. It's their home, it's their land, it's their property, gold, car, everything. But right now they can't afford it, right? They need the money for something else, maybe basics, food, right? Or maybe clothes and stuff like that. That's why they're selling it off. Think of layoffs in the similar way. It is just that, nothing more. Yeah.
As a final thought, do you want to suggest any content that you think might be helpful to the listeners? Can be a book or a podcast or a documentary, anything.
Sure, I can. Yeah, let me recommend a few things. There is this website called growth.design. I think if you are a product designer, UX designer, or if you want to be one, go through that. So what growth.design is, it's made by two individuals, okay? They're not Indians. They're from, I think they're from France, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure. Uh, they uh, they rip apart certain products and write case studies about them. Right? Case studies, that fancy word that we keep talking about. But the difference is they write case studies in a very different way. They use Bitmoji strips to talk about all the situations, right? They show journeys. Okay, okay. Let's talk about maybe how TikTok is. They have a detailed analysis of many apps like that, where they break down, what they feel is right, what they feel is not right, at what point of time, what can get annoying, how was this part handled, was it good, was it bad, and they do it in a very interactive way. And you don't necessarily have to be a designer to understand what they're saying. Even a non-designer, you just open it in front of your parents, and if they just keep clicking next, 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 they're like comic strips. Okay, even they'll understand. Because, yeah, indeed, this makes sense what these people are saying. So I think growth.design is a great resource. Every designer or non-designer, in my mind, should follow growth.design and read the stuff that they have out there. And from books, I'm not an avid book reader though, but there are a couple of books which I would recommend. They are on habits. I've recommended it in other places as well. Two books actually. One is called The Power of Habits, and the other one is Atomic Habits. Power of Habit and Atomic Habits. So these two books I highly recommend because these books talk about habits, how habits are formed, how habits can be changed, what are the things that leads to a habit formation. What are the three, four things. This, then because of which this happens, which gives the ultimate result, right? So they talk about such formulae, for the lack of better word. And why it is important for designers, because people talk about stickiness, right? I think stickiness is a common term in product design world. Stickiness essentially means that are people coming back to your product? Do people like to keep using it again and again and again? Why do they use something again, again, again? Because it has become their habit, right? So the ultimate goal of any designer is to make it their habit, make product that they're making a habit of the users, right? And these books talk about habit formation. So maybe when you're designing, you can try and include some of those techniques which are mentioned out there, so that you can perhaps design your product in a way which would become a habit of your users. Yeah, that's why I recommend it. Yeah, and the books are very interesting. They have lots of case studies. How this brand did this, or how did certain person handle the crowd by using a simple technique and all. Very interesting. I suggest you read them.
Okay, that's crazy. Thanks, man. That that marks the end of questions I had in mind for you, Sapta. The conversation has really been fruitful, and I learned a lot. I mean, a lot talking with you. Do you want to say something like a yarn or piece of advice, anything to the audience?
I think it was great talking to you, Shakti. I didn't realize that, we kept, or rather, I kept talking so much that we had to have a day two to complete all the questions that you had. Trust me, it has never happened to me before. I've recorded many podcasts, But there would be a set of questions, and the host would somehow, cut down on things and then finish it on the time that was decided. But then this was different, where uh, it didn't feel like something is being recorded. It just felt like I'm sitting with a friend and just discussing and talking about various things. So I totally loved it, and thanks for inviting me. And I
My
hope
pleasure,
people
man.
who have listened to it, yeah, and I hope people who have listened or who are listening found it useful. And because I learned design from people around me. Although I have some courses which are paid courses, but I have not spent a single rupee in learning design. So all that I have done is just based on my experiences and the things which have happened to me. And I have nothing to hide here. Right? What has happened to me has happened to me. If I had certain aspirations, if I craved for something, if I wanted to earn money, if I wanted attention, I did. And I'm pretty sure even you do it as well, right? So I try to keep such conversations as unfiltered as possible. Um, and that's what I have done. I hope you found it useful. I think that's all I can say. Uh, yeah.
It was extremely useful, man. At least for me, I
Yeah,
would
I mean,
say.
I don't. I'm still thinking if I should put a piece of advice, but then I realized that the last 2 hours that we have been speaking had been full of advices. I've been just putting gyans out there. But yeah, I think we'll leave it that way.
True that. True that. Thanks again for joining us today, Sapta. I really appreciate that.